actually be something that's out there that may actually be big for Kamala Harris's victory in the race. Now, what we know is that Kamala Harris has actually been surging with women voters ever since Biden actually dropped out. So the gender gap has been growing pretty fast and pretty far. Now, I think it's actually better to do better with women voters than men because they actually register and vote at higher rates. However, I'm not exactly sure how those kinds of numbers divvy up across the swing states, if there's maybe like higher numbers of that in the safe states as opposed to the swing states. But generally, that's kind of what it's assumed to be. A lot of this election really is going to come down to women voters and how strong they come out. It's going to be really, really important for them to show up and really come out to vote in favor of Kamala Harris because that group is really going to be strong for them. And a lot of groups like young women, etc., are actually going to be missed by poll numbers and they're not going to be seen. And we are able to see some voter actions like voter registrations, etc., of those groups really growing. And because those people are not going to get caught in the polls, it's a big deal. But, there's something we might want to call like the closeted woman theorem. So what's going on here is it appears that there's actually an increase in searches for things such as husband, can my husband see my vote? And we're going to look at some of these trends. But there's this article. It says, the big question touching a nerve this election, can my husband find out who I'm voting for? So this is posted up on August 14th, so a month ago on Salon. But it basically talks about this question. So there's a website that was made. Made by Olivia Howell, which is about trying to get women to be able to, I guess, get back on their feet after a breakup or divorce. And so she was asked the question, can my husband find out who I'm voting for in the presidential election? She says, we've been getting this question a lot, so she followed up with some facts. As the Washington Post confirmed with experts, the answer is simple. No, it will be public record that you voted, but not how you filled out your ballot. It's a useful reminder that secret ballots remain secret, even from nosy spouses, but that doesn't explain why the original tweet from Howell went viral, racking up over 8.5 million views and 14,000 retweets. As the comments under the post suggest, most people were envisioning a specific scenario: thousands, perhaps millions of women saddled with Donald Trump voting jerks for husbands who yearned to give their vote to Vice President Kamala Harris this November. Quote, I think secret voting by MAGA partners is a more widespread issue than most people think, one woman replied. Another man wrote, as a poll worker, I've had to deal with husbands and fathers who want to join their wives or daughters in the voting booth to make sure they vote the right way. That's crazy. That's absolute insanity. And I don't doubt at all that this definitely happens, especially in like more conservative states. That's probably considered like socially acceptable. And a lot of it is going to be, whoever's the person there who's kind of monitoring, it is going to come down to them, right? Because they're kind of going to be the executive in that area and sort of the one carrying out the rules there. And I can only imagine how many of those people are like that. We are seeing kind of in some red states like surges, I think, happening in like states like Alaska or Arkansas and these kind of other places, right? So there even seem to be some surges in red states that are happening, which is kind of weird. So there's a new, Arkansas poll that actually looks really good in terms of not her winning the state, but she's only, I think, down like 15 or something. And I think the state was won by Donald Trump by like some insane amount of points, like almost 30 points, I think it was, like probably 28 or something. So it's like a huge surge in favor of Kamala Harris. So even in some red states, there appear to be these kinds of things. It says, outside of anecdotes, hard to know how common it is for men to control the votes of wives or other women in their families. Exit polling data shows a 12-point gap between how married and unmarried women voted in 2020. A lot of this is going to be spurious once you control for other variables. But it goes on, it says, but it's a smaller 7-point gap between how married and unmarried men voted. Still, the differences aren't all up to men forcing their wives to vote for the candidate of their choice. Some are due to age and other demographic differences between married and unmarried people. There's also a whole range of ways men exert power over women that fall short of outright abuse. Educating the public about their secret ballot rights is good, but don't expect it to have a measurable impact on the 2024 outcome. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not this is going to be people who potentially are genuinely trying to, figure out if they are able to, vote and their partner is not able to see or their husband's not able to see the vote, or if it's a lot of people might be sharing it thinking that there's a lot of people who are out there like that. And so it'll be really interesting to see. There might also be a closeted MAGA vote potentially as well. There might be some people who are MAGA people who are like against Trump now, but they're simply not able to come out amongst their family. Almost like you're gay, but you can't come out your family, but instead it's like you're not MAGA, but you can't come out your family. And it's really hard for them because imagine your entire community, your family, everyone in your community is pro MAGA, it might be might be harder to come out as being anti MAGA than it is to come out as gay in some circles, right? So think about that. But one way we can look at this also, we can take a look at some of these Google trends. So what I typed in here for this one was, when I typed in the full sentence, it didn't come out for anything, but here I typed in husband vote as the search term, you guys can see. And then we take a look at this interest over time graph. What we see is on August 30th, it's at 0. At the 31st, it's at 24. September 1st is at 40, and then it keeps kind of rolling around here around the late 20s and 30s, basically. And then what we can see is it peaks. This is interesting. So it actually peaks during the debate, or the day after the debate. So on the 9th, it's at 53, and the 10th, it's at 55. And then on the 11th, the day after the debate, it literally peaks. So the way the interest markers work is it basically gives you proportions of the max. So if it's at 55, it's at the max that it's ever been, I think, of all time, it says here. Yes, it says a value of 100 is the peak popularity for the term. A value of 50 means that the term is half as popular. A score of 0 means there was not enough data for this term. So when it says 100 here, it means a full peak out of the term, right? And then here for 55, it means 55%. And then it's at 65 today, which is the 13th, but for you, it'll be the 14th. So it's still going. And so also another big, really important thing is abortion was actually the most searched issue during the debate. So we can see this here. Top search political issues by state. So nationally, you can see almost every single state except for Ohio, the same place where all the Springfield crazy stuff is, all the lies are being spread. Every single state outside of that, the most searched issue was abortion. Abortion is definitely the most salient issue, I think, right now. And it's also really beneficial because in order to run on policy, you have to be able to have policy that's easy to package and potentially very bombastic. For example, like Medicare for all, $15 minimum wage, build the wall. Those are like slogan policies you can use. But for example, policy wonky positions like, raise the CTC to 6K, or shift the supply curve to the right of the home market. We're going to bring aggregate price level down. Those kinds of policies, or we're going to give 25K to homeowners. It's boring. No one cares outside of political junkies. Political junkies are obviously going to care. Undecided and average voters are really dumb. They're not going to care about that kind of stuff. Abortion is a social issue. It's very, very deeply rooted, and really people are really serious about it. This is an issue that you can really run on, that you could really policy-wise make your campaign on. You can get people to vote for you on the grounds of abortion. Trying to get them to vote for you on the grounds of, hey, we're going to raise the CTC to 6K, it's not really going to end up working for you. So this is a really huge one. I think the Democrats can improve their messaging on this in terms of being more so pro-abortion as opposed to focusing on the abortion ban. And I think there also needs to be something figured out that's more powerful than, hey, we're going to codify Roe versus Wade as statute. I think nobody really thinks it's going to survive as a statute because obviously it's not going to survive a Supreme Court review. They're going to say the federal Congress doesn't have the jurisdiction to pass this. But I think everyone's kind of like, okay, a common law ruling doesn't stand. Obviously, a statute's not going to work either. That's obviously not always the case, but obviously in this one it's going to be, I think, as well, pretty much guaranteed, right? So they have to come up with something like that. But we can also do another search of some similar terms as well. So we have husband vote. We can do spouse vote. If we look at spouse vote, we can see it also peaks the day after the debate. So we can see it's at 100 here on Google interest, and then it's at 62 on the day after, or 87 on the day after, and then 62 on 2 days after. So it's still lingering. Right? It's the highest it's been even today, which is like 3 days after the debate. It's still up there now. And then we can also look up partner vote is another one as well. It peaked also on the day after the debate, then 78, then 50. So all these kind of similar terms are kind of peaking right now. But we also know here's some more voter registration numbers that have come out from Tom Bonnier. He says, we now have post-721 registration. That's obviously when Biden dropped out. Updates for every battleground state. All percentages are increases relative to the same week in 2020. 22% overall. 34% amongst women, so they're higher than the average, right? By about 12 points. And then we have here 50% under 30, 56% model Dems. So a lot of places don't have partisanship data, so he uses something called modeled partisanship, where he's like predicting the data based on other pieces of evidence. So that's 56% amongst modeled partisan Dems, 58% black, 125% black women under 30. So it'll be super interesting. And again, I guess I'll pull up we had like the Arkansas numbers that had come out, right? So we can kind of look at those as well. We'll pull those up just to kind of see maybe there's something kind of going on here. But Trump is only up 15 in this recent Hendricks College poll that had dropped last time. And what we can see here is, this is like a long time ago, right? But Trump was up 32 in October last year. And then in September last year is 25, so it's a big surge in favor of her. But if we look at 2020, he was down 22.8. And the Hendricks poll was actually, we can even look at the Hendricks poll, was plus 25 last time. So in terms of like a one-to-one, lookup, the plus 25, that's a 10-point gain. So there's something weird happening where even in some of the red states, she's actually going up. We could even look at like Alaska. We can look at Alaska as well, but it's like, there's a little bit going on here in terms of like a little bit of a surge where it's like, +5 for Harris, +5 for Trump against Harris, but, Biden was losing by a lot more in the state, right? So, he was down 19 in this one and, 23 in this one and then 12 in these. And so what we can see is, even in the Alaska Survey Research, right, this is a long time ago, it was like a year ago. It was like a year ago at this point, right? Year and a half. So even in these areas, it's surging. So is this kind of just something that liberal women want to be true or liberals want to be true? Or is this something in real life? We don't know. But there does seem to be an unexplained surge happening in those red states like Alaska, and Arkansas, for example. What is going on? What is the cause of that surge? Is it these women who are, the silent women vote, the closeted women vote? We'll call it the closeted white, maybe the closeted women vote or the closeted white vote. I'm not sure which one to go with. But closeted women vote, is that going to happen? Is it going to have a big impact? Even the slightest of a margin, man, 1 or 2% is huge, especially if you're talking about conversions. That's like a double effect, right? If you're taking away the boost, it's even more different than just turning people out, right? So is it real? I don't know. You let me know. You can let me know if you have any anecdotes or anything like that. Definitely curious to hear your thoughts down below.